Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not totally surprised that all four men at the end are in the exact same place that she's in, because energetically she's attracting what she is thinking about within herself. She's attracting people that are also thinking about, am I ready to be in a relationship? Am I ready to be in love? Am I ready for this thing? I've been in something totally unhealthy. Hi everyone, I'm Julie, she's Kelly, and we're here to find love. We're back again this week for another Bachelorette recap. Today we're recapping episode 7 of Jenn's season of The Bachelorette. For those of you who don't know us, we're two dating coaches who analyze the relationship psychology and dating themes in reality TV shows, especially The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. If you're into this kind of stuff, hit the subscribe button to follow along and join the conversation. You can also listen to us in podcast form on Spotify and Apple Podcast. As always, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments down below as you're watching. We love hearing what you think, and I think we all love reading each other's thoughts and perspectives. If you're listening on podcast, shoot us a DM on Instagram while you listen. Get cozy, have a cup of tea, and let's get into it.
All right, y'all. I'm so sorry about my voice. I sound a little bit like a frog.
No, you sound great.
I just got back from a whole lot of travel, so pardon my scratchiness. We are in hometowns week. Jenn goes and visits the hometowns of her final four. We have Devin, Jeremy, Jonathon, and Marcus in that order. We'll go through and talk about all four of them and what we thought about their hometowns. We have some thoughts about overall how each relationship is doing in comparison to past seasons. Let's start off with Devin, though, because I think he's probably the farthest along of all of the guys, right? On his hometown date, he is the only one who said that he is in love with Jenn, and he directly said it. They had a really cute date. They went running. He kind of introduced her to her, his running group and people who he genuinely spends a lot of time with. It was really sweet. It did feel like a real couple doing a real couple type of activity. To be honest, these two seemed so strong to me. Of all four of the hometown dates, these were the two that felt like their connection actually seemed quite far along. When he said he was in love with her toward the end of the hometown, it didn't feel forced or random or off. It felt accurate to what their connection was.
She was so enamored by his ability to be so forthright about how he truly felt about her and how he could see her melding into his life. It was amazing to see Jenn really respond to that running date. I love outdoor activities. I think if I was surprised by a running date, I'd be like, oh my God, okay, let's get into it. Let's loop a mile. What I was really noticing was, whoa, they remind me of this high school giddiness, like the first person that you ever loved, the first person that you were ever super like, oh my God, I can see a long-term future with you, and I'm saying I love you. When they were saying it to each other outside of the house, I actually felt a little bit of the nerves that I felt when I was in high school with my high school boyfriend, just being like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that this is happening to me. I can't believe that I get to experience something that feels as good as this is, which is love. Even being so confident with his family, and his family was like, are you sure she's dating these other guys? And Devin's like, nope, I love her. She's the person I'm choosing. I think there's something about that Jenn really, really appreciates, of like, oh my gosh, he is so certain, and I can really rest in his reassurance and his vision of what he sees for us. This would be the only connection that Jenn could really feel confident about pursuing if she is looking for marriage. Because with the three other men, they do really like her, but I wouldn't say they're in love with her. They can have loving feelings. I think Jonathon mentioned that to her during the preview, but that's not the same as now I'm going to get on one knee and propose to you, and I know what this engagement means. I feel like Devin is the only person in the Bachelor format that is there the same time that she's there. So just from timing perspective, that makes Devin the clear front runner. It's just not that typical Bachelorette journey where she is getting to have multiple people profess their love for her, and for her to really feel like I can envision my life with each person. Where I feel like she's at is, I am feeling this depth and this consideration and this merging with you, but it still feels like it's based on potential versus this is real, and I'm I can see this clearly. So that it makes me a little bit sad because her Bachelorette journey, we see this in the preview. There's a little bit of her asking the men, how do you feel about me? And them responding in a way that at that point of her show, they're not there yet. It's maybe like a few episodes ago where they could have been okay with being in that space of like, let me figure things out. But right before they meet her family, I think that she would want to be more comfortable in their confidence versus I want to get there. I'm trying to get there, but I'm not there yet.
At least as of this episode, I think that Devin feels like the only one that feels further along, at least to me. And if there is something tenuous about their relationship, it pales in comparison to what's tenuous about all the other three, right? The other three, it feels like there are so many steps behind where Devin is. At least Devin is like really wanting to get there. I agree that there is still a little bit of they're just talking about it in terms of potential kind of thing. I think Marcus said this at the end. He was like, it seems like these other guys would get down on one knee immediately. I think that's really true for Devin. Devin, I feel like if he was given the opportunity on this date, he would have gotten down on one knee for Janet. And the only thing with that for me is we know, based on some information that's coming out online, that also Devin is maybe a squishier character than what we're seeing on the screen. Some of the information about his social media likes and engagement has not been pretty. And so it is concerning if that is Jenn's only connection. And to your point, it kind of makes me sad that she doesn't have 4 really, really strong connections to choose from. It's kind of like Devin is the one, really, at this point, right?
Especially being the lead, you're fortunate enough and lucky enough to be in a position where you are really having an opportunity to see what each love could feel like and then choosing what is the best one for me. What's happening is Devin is the one that is most ready, which automatically pushes him forward because the other men are not. At this time of the season, most of the leads do have a lot of people that start professing their love. They don't say, I'm falling for you. They say, I'm falling in love with you. I can see myself with you at the end of this. It seems a little bit like Jenn was almost, I kind of considered it a red flag when she was asking their family, do you think he's ready to get engaged to me? Like, I was like, they're the wrong person. If anything, Jenn is the one that, Jenn and the person are supposed to be the one kind of like convincing the family and making a case for their relationship versus Jenn being like, I don't really know. They're still kind of guarded. What do you think they're ready? Because what does the family say? The family can't just say yes, because then that's inauthentic because they don't know her that well, but they want to support their family as well. So it's just it was an interesting episode to watch from that perspective, because I don't think there's been a lot of seasons where it's felt like this before, this level of uncertainty, this level of everybody is like in really different places of their journey, and I wouldn't say everybody has landed on love.
After Devin's date, I was like, okay, things are moving right along. But then we get to Jeremy, and Jeremy was the first one, exactly like you're saying, where it felt like she was really asking his family, like, is he ready for an engagement? The fact that she was asking the family that as opposed to talking to Jeremy about that. If I was one of those family members, I would be like, girl, if you're asking me, we shouldn't even be having this conversation if you have to ask me this question.
It was so cute seeing them interact with the weirdest grocery store that I've ever seen. It seems like so much fun. It seems really magical. I think that grocery store as a kid growing up would be this like a core childhood memory. There's something about it, about walking around and there's a talking moose and people are dancing and you see your family members coming in and out. You see your high school friends.
Dude, I thought about you during this date. I was like, I feel like this is such a perfect Julie date. Like, I feel like you would love like grocery shopping and eating all these like different little foods and stuff and just like
I love
looking
that.
at all the different whatever they were looking at. I don't know. It felt like a very Julie date to me.
There's something so cute about it. Like, I loved that Jeremy he chose that space as his space to welcome her into his hometown. And seeing them laugh and joke together, you can tell she does have such genuine connections with these people. It's just a matter of like, how far along are they? Are they really connecting emotionally? So I guess because at this point, you know, Jeremy and Jenn are not talking about their emotions. Of course, they look like they're having the time of their life. They're just like laughing and making jokes and having fun. When his family met her, I loved how they immediately pinpointed on, you guys have so much fun together, but where is the depth? And they both weren't able to really have a substantial answer for that or talk about how they've developed that over the course of their relationship, which was another red flag of, okay, you know, you're right. Like, if Jenn isn't the one that's really able, she can't bring the gravity to the situation and Jeremy's not as willing, then the relationship is a non-starter for the progression of the show. I think in Bachelor in Paradise, they would have gotten along really well. And I was thinking, oh my God, Jenn would have been the queen of Bachelor in Paradise.
Oh my God. Totally.
She would have been amazing. And she would have had so much time with each man. She would have been able to really get to know them. She could have dated a lot of people. You can tell she's really thriving in that environment. But I think it's harder for her to be so emotionally connected to herself. So then how can you emotionally connect to other people? You know, how you do one thing is how you do everything. That's something I think. So like, if she's not really asking herself these deep questions of how do I connect to these men, then the men she's choosing are probably not asking that of themselves or the connection either. So, you know, Jeremy and Jenn, their connection felt like a little bit like the record stopped a little bit. They were just having fun and dancing and laughing, and the family's like, are you ready to get engaged? Because that's literally what's next. And if you're not ready to get engaged, you got to think about this. This is your life. This is not a show. This is not fake. This is something that you're choosing. This means something to you. This means something to us. Let's really think about it. And it was interesting because it still didn't really even shake up Jeremy. I think Jeremy still felt quite, you know, like, oh, like I'm still going to be okay with pursuing this connection to Jenn because she sees that we can go. I think Jenn was a little bit more of the idea of like, okay, I need to feel a little bit more depth. Even though I really like Jeremy, we have such an amazing time together, I can't choose him because he isn't able to get there the way that the other men can.
I really liked that the family was able to very quickly pinpoint this difference between we have a lot of fun together versus we're able to like have a full life together. And I actually do believe that these two could have gotten there maybe if they had more time, like you're saying, like in a Bachelor in Paradise type of setting. I kind of think these two would really thrive because they're so fun. Jenn is exactly like you're saying. She would have been so popular in Bachelor in Paradise because she's that person who comes down like in the middle of the season and everyone's like, whoa, she's so fun. She's so like hot and easy breezy and like interesting. And my relationship is so serious. I want to go for that girl who's like fun and lighthearted. That's Jenn. And so she really would have thrived in that setting. We know that one of the biggest things for her that she has talked about that she looks for in a partner is humor. Like one of her most important things that she like has said she wants in a relationship. Of course, she wants to be like respected and understood and like, you know, allowed to have bad days, etc., etc. But like one of the biggest things in terms of like compatibility is like she wants someone who she can have fun with. And in that sense, Jeremy is perfect for her, right? He's like the perfect fit in terms of having that. But the emotional connection part, it's just hard to say because it's so early. Like they only had their first one-on-one date last week. So it's like, it's almost like maybe they could have gotten there if they had had more time. I do think that there are situations where it is okay if a relationship has humor or playfulness as a foundation, fun as a foundation, because some people are like that. I do think some people, like that is something that is basically one of the biggest things for them in a relationship. And the other stuff can kind of be worked through. Like as long as you have that day-to-day compatibility, that is the most important thing. And it's not necessarily how I would seek a partnership, but I do think some people look for that. So in that sense, like part of me wants to continue seeing Jenn and Jeremy pursue something, but of course at the end of the day, like she knows what she's looking for and she knows that she needs something more. I think at least she like mentally knows that. It's funny because in terms of connection, I still think Jeremy feels like the one that I would have wanted her to be with.
You're right when you're saying that you would rather have Jenn choose Jeremy than any of the other guys. I agree. From my perspective as a relationship coach, if I was advising Jenn, I wouldn't say get into a marriage. I would say date the person who can be a healthy relationship for you. And I think Jeremy, out of all of the guys, is really a mirror for Jenn. He is also learning about his emotions, but he's not taking it super seriously. He's not pushing for something that doesn't feel authentic to where he's at. He prioritizes the same values that Jenn prioritizes. So therefore, they have a really good relationship for what it is. It doesn't have to be the super heavy, deep relationship where you're unpacking all of your past stories and you're learning all of these like communication techniques, get closer to each other. It could really be a relationship that's so lighthearted and fun and brings out the sides of you that you love about yourself, and you get to build into this depth that is at your own time. So from that perspective, Jeremy is great for her. But I think from the show, her being the Bachelorette, it makes him an automatic elimination because he just isn't as far along. He isn't able to express certain things that Jonathon has. Like, at least Jonathon opened up about his ex and about some of the emotional trauma that he went through with his partner. I don't know if I ever really saw Jeremy open up to the same extent of this is something difficult I went through. On a Bachelor show, it's almost like we don't have a deep connection because you haven't trauma dumped on me, which I don't agree with. I actually think that she and him would be the best dating compatibility out of all of these guys. But from the perspective of the show, which is what she's framing everything on, it's a no-go.
Because she is going through this healing journey of her own that is very emotional, there is something to the idea that she wants someone who can maybe meet her there and like talk about that kind of stuff. Like, has Jenn talked about her past with Jeremy at all? I'm not even really sure. Maybe we just didn't see it. But it has felt like she hasn't been able to go there with him. And to your point, it's actually okay. Eventually in their relationship, they would talk about it. Eventually, of course, they would be able to open up about that stuff. But it hasn't been necessary in their relationship so far on the show, so they haven't. But because of the show's format, that makes it seem like, oh, well, Jeremy's not very emotional. He's not very far along. And I don't know if that's even true. Maybe like in the future, they would be able to kind of dig into some of that stuff. But it's kind of like the show's format makes someone with a little bit more of like that intensity that we see with the Devin connection, or even Marcus that has like a little bit of a push-pull thing going on. Those connections feel so much more potent, and someone like Jeremy, it kind of falls flat, even though there's nothing wrong with her connection with Jeremy. It seems kind of healthy, honestly.
Do you think that it's Devin's game to basically lose? Do you feel like he's the obvious choice for Jenn? How do you feel about Jenn sending home Jeremy? Are you with us? Will you feel like they were the right choice? Let us know in the comments down below. And by the way, if you're enjoying this conversation so far, do us a favor and hit the like button on this video. It helps us out a lot. If you're listening on podcasts, please give us a 5-star rating if you're feeling so inclined, and leave a review. Thank you so much for listening and for all of your support. It means the world. The third hometown date was Jonathon. They had a super cute lacrosse sport hangout thingy where they had a field, they were throwing balls and nets. I don't know anything about lacrosse. It was nice seeing them bond with that. It was nice seeing Jenn feel like she was really getting an opportunity to show a side of herself that is really meaningful. I think that she mentioned growing up that sports was a huge salvation, and it was a really big community building tool. His family met Jenn. They had their reservations about what was going on. I think Jenn was really forthcoming about saying Jonathon is a little bit guarded, and his family immediately picked up on that. His mom gave really good advice. She said, if she is the one, you better go all in, because at this point, if you are the one, you would know it. There was a lot of wisdom around her saying, if you know that she's your person, then you would be further along and you would be open. He was kind of telling his mom, I was waiting for the family's approval before I feel like I could really open up to Jenn. Well, the family gave it. The mom was like, yeah, I totally see you and Jenn together. What I found interesting, and I'm bringing in the preview because there was a lot of different, there's a lot of different themes that we're weaving between with how we feel like Jenn is kind of emotionally handling the hometowns, and also what's happening next was that in the previews, even with his mother's approval, he still was holding back a lot. He was still very hesitant, and he was still saying, I have loving feelings towards you, but I'm not quite there yet. So it shows that his hesitancy, it's a lot more deep-seated than what's actually being represented, at least to his family and with Jenn. I don't think Jonathon's going to make it long because Jenn almost is looking for somebody to tell her, I want you, I feel I am in love with you, and then Jenn will kind of make that decision of, okay, how do I feel about you?
There was so many things about this date that actually concerned me. Like, I loved the lacrosse portion of it because it was cute to see Jenn, just like in an element that is a part of her personality that we don't see a lot, like her sporty side. It was just cute. It was confusing to me that he was even saying this whole thing of, I can't fall in love or I can't be in love with Jenn until I get my family's approval. Because, of course you want to know that your family or the people who you care about like your partner, but there was something about it that almost felt like an excuse or like it was like childish in a way. Not childish, but just, if I really like someone, the thing that's holding me back is not going to be whether or not my mom approves of him. That's something that will be important in terms of, could we get engaged? Like, could we have a family together? Yes, I want to know that he will mesh with my family. But in terms of, do I like Jenn? Well, let me see if my mom likes her first. I don't know. Yeah. It just didn't feel real to me. And then, you're right, we get to the preview and we see that he's still hesitating. There was one thing that he did say, I can't remember who he said it to, but he said something along the lines of, I want to make sure that Jenn is who I think that she is and that she's not just putting on a front for me. Like, I want to make sure that I actually know her. I can't remember who he said that to, but when he said that, I was like, whoa, that sounds like you're not just hesitating because you have your walls up. It sounds like you're not actually sure about Jenn, right? And so the whole thing just felt very, like he was saying the right words to her, but then to his family, he just seemed so hesitant in a way that at the end, they kind of like tie it all up with a bow. Ooh, we're both falling for each other. But I don't know. It just all fell flat to me. Even for her, honestly, I didn't even feel like she seemed that into him in comparison to the other guys. Like, even Jeremy, she seemed to have more of a rapport and chemistry with compared to Jonathon. Maybe it's just because Jonathan's like hot, but I don't know.
He is hot.
It just all felt squishy to me. I just didn't really get it. I was so surprised that she kept him over Jeremy. And there were a lot of moments in their date that I was just like, what is going on with this relationship? Is this even like this of all of the relationships feels like a TV relationship. It just feels like they're both kind of fronting for the storyline a little bit, if that makes sense.
There is this thing about him. There's a big block between him and Jenn. I don't know what it is. He's not really naming it. He's bringing up all of these excuses. I don't even know if it's a question of, is Jenn right for me? It's a question of, is Jonathon able to be in a relationship without projecting his ex onto his partner?
Ooh.
We learned about it during one of their dates together, was that they had such a healthy, happy relationship. His family also pointed this out, and then it became something that was emotionally abusive. I think he mentioned that she started using drugs and started, I forget the exact language that she used towards him, but she said that he was abusive, or she gaslit, manipulated him. I can't remember exactly, but I remember Jenn also really bonding because a lot of, one of her past relationships did that same behavior towards her. Where Jonathon has been with his past, if you've been in a relationship where it was emotionally abusive and you had something that felt really, really good and the partner started to turn on you, if he hasn't been able to get over it, he will experience every partner the same way. It's almost like this block. It's a projection. It's a hurt that hasn't been attended towards. So then you're just kind of looking for it with every person you have. You're really guarded. And then you're subconsciously creating the same conditions. I mean, it's not like he's creating the same dynamic with him and Jenn, but he's creating the same wounding because he's so subconsciously attracted to it. It has so much charge, and he's bringing it to his relationship with Jenn, just purely from the space of him having these excuses for Jenn of why he feels like he can't get close, and it's been the obstacles are removed. Mom says yes. Okay, so then what else is next? I still feel a little bit of, I don't know about you, Jenn. Okay, so then what is that? Can he unpack that? And can he unpack that in time to get married? I think that's very much something that is a journey that takes its time, and you don't want to force it. You don't want to rush into an engagement when you're in the thick of it. And I think when something is triggering you to that extent, it's good to really give it the space it deserves rather than rushing into this relationship where you might start to throw a lot of that thinking on the relationship of like, I don't know if I can trust her. I don't know if I really know her. I don't know if she's going to be somebody that I need to have my guard up around because she might really hurt me. There is something about Jonathon and Jenn where I'm like, whoa, he's definitely not ready to get engaged. Like, I mean, you know, so is Jenn, but I don't think that he needs to rush into it.
You know, it's interesting. As you were describing Jonathon, I mean, it's so similar to the journey that Jenn is on, right? Jenn is also trying to stop repeating her patterns from her past unhealthy relationships, right? She's also trying to do this thing where she kind of removes herself from that past pattern or past cycle to get into a healthier relationship. But it does feel like she is, even though I don't think she's that far along, she does feel farther along than Jonathon. And the thing with Jonathon too is, I'm glad you brought up that his past relationship, because when that came up in the one-on-one date, actually when he described it, I remember thinking that his story was a little bit confusing, and because it wasn't very clear to me exactly what happened, and maybe it was the way it was edited, or maybe it's the way that he has or has not kind of learned to explain this narrative, or maybe he hasn't made full sense of what happened in the relationship. I'm not fully sure, but the way he explained it, it was like, I guess it was a healthy relationship that became toxic, but it was strange because he was saying that he felt like he was the one experiencing abuse, but she felt that way too. Like she felt like she was experiencing abuse. So he kind of takes for granted that she's wrong and that she was just like, I guess, crazy and accusing him of stuff that he didn't do. But I was like, I don't know why we would assume that without further information. So the whole thing just felt like, at least from the little we heard about it, it just seemed a little bit confusing, maybe unprocessed or underexplored. And you're right, it wouldn't surprise me if Jonathon is maybe a little bit not fully there yet in terms of readiness for, all right, I know what happened in that past relationship and I know how to move forward from it. Because clearly something else is kind of going on here with his hesitations with Jenn, and it's like they're both kind of saying the words to progress the relationship, but I don't actually know if, I don't know. I feel like if you go one layer deeper on this relationship, it's like all mush, you know? It's like it just doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel solid. And so there's a lot of question marks. I was so surprised that she kept him in comparison to Jeremy, but I don't know, he's so pretty, so I get it. It's all confusing to me, and to me, this one seems like the next to go, like of the three who are left. Jonathon seems like the one who should go next. Not because I like Devin or Marcus. I actually don't like either of them for Jenn, but this one definitely felt the most, I don't get it at all, to be honest, with these two, and there's just too many question marks and too much uncertainty with these two to make it make sense.
Agreed. And even though I like them together, you're right that he hasn't fully made sense of his story with his ex-partner. I was in Jen's shoes, and somebody that I liked was describing that kind of situation where there was abuse, but the ex was kind of saying that Jonathon did it. Jonathon was like, she was doing it. My first instinct was, need to unpack this a little bit. What does this really, let's talk about it. I just want to be really thoughtful about making sure that if I'm entering into a relationship with somebody, I don't want to just take their word at it, especially when abuse is being called into when it's being caught into like a relationship pattern. It's like, okay, if something like this has happened, I do want to understand it a little bit more deeply. Because she experienced it with the partner, she was just immediately relating and, really sympathizing. But I think a more experienced version of Jenn in the future would say, what does that mean? We have to talk about it. Well, what did your ex experience? Just to get more of a full picture, especially if he was a person that I was choosing. I agree with you. I do think he's the next to go. It's just fascinating seeing where Jenn is at right now. Like, she is with these guys that aren't really giving her a lot. I don't think her picker is fully on yet. Like, I think she's still rewiring it, and it is pointing her towards specific people, but all of them just feel a little bit like not husband material. If I had to categorize it, they just don't feel like Jen's husband. I just see boyfriend. Maybe
all three of these last three guys, I'm just kind of like, I don't know. They all feel like big giant question marks to me.
What do you think is blocking Jonathon from really being able to open up to Jenn? And do you think he can get there over the next few weeks, or do you think he's the next one to go home? Let us know in the comments down below. And by the way, if you've watched this point in the video and you're not subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. We do this every single week. We recap every single episode of The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, and so on. So subscribe and follow along. So then we go to the last hometowns, and it's with Marcus. And Marcus was a little bit surprising to me because he paints himself as this lone wolf, reserved person, and he was like, my adoptive parents are not going to come to see us. So I thought, okay, maybe it's just him and his sister and maybe a few friends. It's a full-on house party filled with tons of people. It was a little bit shocking to just see the volume of people that were Marcus's friends and just supporting him, just because of the way that I have perceived him throughout this entire season, is that he just tends to be somebody that maybe thrives in a small group or small group settings versus like big situations. So it kind of rounded out a little bit more to how I see Marcus, and I think his community just seemed much more lively, which was positive from the aspect of thinking about he's gone through so much. He has been everything he experienced with his biological parents and adoptive parents growing up. There is quite a wound around family and community. So from that aspect, I was happy to see him really thriving in a situation where there are so many people around him. So, I think Jenn does really well during his hometowns. Like, she's done really well at every hometowns in terms of gelling with the family, joking with the friends, showing off the affection to the person. So during this date, Jenn also opens up to the sister, and she says, I don't see Marcus being super emotionally expressive. Do you think he's ready to get engaged? Which, once again, is not a great question to ask a family member. I think that Jenn and Marcus, if they were there, they could have done a different job in terms of like really assuring the family versus being like, I feel really wavy about this. What do you think? So the sister brings that concern to Marcus, and Marcus and her have this really vulnerable conversation around Marcus feeling like he can open up a little bit more to Jenn, but him still feeling like he's not there yet. And I think that's something that Marcus feels very strongly about. He likes Jenn, but he is not there yet, and he is not there yet to the point where he's starting to experience shame around it. I just once again have to bring in the preview, because I think the preview and even how they finished up their hometowns said a lot about their connection. Jenn was a little bit more of like, I really like you, I really can see this, and Marcus is holding back a little bit. I don't love that for Jenn. I mean, we spoke about this last week. We have seen some serious allegations about Marcus on the internet. So I don't love that she is basically telling him. I think if Marcus said, I love you, and he was as confident as Devin, she would pick Marcus over Devin. I'm not sure, but there's something about it where it's like, he's not giving her the affirmation, and yet she's giving it to him. She's the one telling him, I like you, I'm falling for you, I can see a future with you. He's really reserved, and she continues to pile onto it. And I don't love that dynamic for her. What did you think?
This was one thing that I was starting to think during this hometown was I was confused how emotional Jenn was getting about it. It seemed like she, like, all of a sudden really likes Marcus and, like, really wants it to work. And to me, I was like, whoa, since when are you so invested in this relationship, and why? He doesn't really represent any of the things that she's looking for, right? She's looking for someone who, one, is funny, which is not Marcus. Two,
reading him to Phil.
no offense, but I mean, he's not the most playful of the bunch. And she is looking for someone who has this, like, you know, ability to go in and be emotional with her. And that's also not Marcus. And so he's kind of not any of the things that she's looking for. And so it does make me wonder, like, if he doesn't really have any of the qualities that she's looking for, and she also doesn't seem to kind of be, I feel like when she's with him, she doesn't seem to be herself. She doesn't act the same way that she does around, like, Devin or Jeremy or whoever. She's not, like, her playful, fun self. She's, like, kind of like, oh, whoa, I hope he likes me. Like, she's, like, in this, like, kind of state of, like, yearning with him. And it actually was starting to remind me of Sam M, actually, in the sense that, like, it was, like, almost because she wanted this validation from Sam M so badly that she, like, kind of put up with a lot of bullshit from him, or that she accepted a lot of stuff that was, like, obviously red flags or obviously signals that he wasn't a good match for her. But she kind of went along with it, I think, because she just wanted that validation so badly. And in a way, it's almost like Marcus is the new unavailable man that she's chasing. It's like Marcus is not giving her the affirmation that she wants, and it's making her want him even more, even though he's not even really a good fit for her in a lot of ways. To your point, I just didn't really like this dynamic of her kind of, like, pining after him and him being so unsure. Not that I think that he's treating her poorly, but it's just the dynamic doesn't feel very balanced, and I don't actually know what their relationship is based on, really. I guess they both have these really tricky pasts, these really traumatic and emotional pasts, and there is a connection there based on that. But I kept thinking, is it just that he's unavailable? Is that what she's being drawn to? And is it something about, like, how intense the emotions are around this relationship that makes her think that they are compatible? Because sometimes we do that. We feel like there's all these big feelings, there's this roller coaster going on, and that must mean that I love this person. When in reality, it's a roller coaster relationship. That's not love. Just because things have a lot of push and pull doesn't mean that you are a great couple. It doesn't mean that you are a good relationship that can last the long haul. It just means there's all this push and pull, and it's exciting, and it makes you feel a lot of things. But does that mean that they're a long-term compatible couple? I don't really know. So I don't know. I felt more perplexed. I've gone so back and forth on Marcus. I've been like, ooh, I like how Jenn is this emotional rock for Marcus, to, like, I don't know, like, he's holding back too much. So even me, I feel like I'm on a roller coaster with these two. Like, I don't know what to think of them. So I can only imagine that with Jenn, it's also probably kind of confusing. And we know that for Jenn, that confusion is exactly the thing that draws her in. Like, she's drawn in by someone who is a little bit back and forth with her.
I totally agree with that. That is something I would very much want for Jenn not to choose Marcus because, you know, you pointing out that Sam M and Marcus feel similar, and we don't want to conflate these two people necessarily because, you know, they are different. However, there is something around, what do you see in this person? Why are you keeping this person around? What are they giving you? There is editing, but I fully don't understand it. I just don't see Marcus doing anything for Jenn. I just kind of see Jenn reaching out and Jenn being this person that's like, I really like you. I'm looking out for you. I'm observing you. But it's like, where is Marcus's reciprocation? Where is this level of, I am available towards you and I am seeking you out because I see you as my partner? I don't see that same level of autonomy that I see with Devin, for example. I think Devin is maybe the only person no, he isn't maybe, he is the only person that is doing this at the moment. He wants Jenn for Jenn, and it's not like a girlfriend level. I think he sees her as an actual wife. With Marcus in particular, I don't like this connection for Jenn. I don't like who Jenn has to be to get validation from Marcus. And the preview was like, the preview was so gut-wrenching when she was like, I'm falling in love with you. And he gave a response that actually gave me a little bit of cognitive dissonance. I was like, is he the lead or is she the lead? Because then he was like, that makes me super happy that you said that. I don't know if I feel that way yet. And I was like, whoa, this is so... It's just such a weird dynamic that she's in, where she's kind of the one that's like, choose me, and he's like, I don't know if I want to choose you. And the power is a little bit, I would say he has the power versus Jenn in this relationship. And the entire premise of the show is that she has the power to choose her partner, to choose herself, to choose a life that she wants. And Marcus is around and he's not choosing her to the same level. I don't love that for her.
You know, it's tough because in a real life relationship, it is okay for people to not be at the same pace because, you know, of course, someone's going to develop feelings first. It's not always going to be like, we fell in love at the same time. Blah. That's not, you know, real life, it's just we get there when we get there, and you have all of this time to figure that out. It's okay that Marcus is a little bit of a slower burn, but again, it's in this process. You don't got time for that. The longer that he stays around, the longer that she is wasting time, frankly, and emotions on him when someone else could have been here, could have been Jeremy, you know? I like that he's acknowledging that. He's starting to recognize that his hesitation could impact her and could impact her ability to have a happy ending. He mentions, I think in an In the Moment interview, that, you know, Jenn deserves to have someone who is like all in, and these other guys seem a lot more all in than Marcus does. But little does Marcus know, actually, most of them are also like a little wishy-washy. Like, they're all feeling a little bit squishy with her. Marcus is just like the most squishy of them all, but it does seem like, I don't know why this is a dynamic. In past Bachelorette seasons, like in general, I do feel like on The Bachelor, the women tend to be a lot more excited about getting engaged than men do on The Bachelorette. I think that is just a general trend. I think there are other seasons of The Bachelorette where The Bachelorette is like trying to figure out if the guy she likes the most is actually going to propose to her. And I just chalk that up to, I do think that women are kind of taught to really value being chosen. And so if you go through a process where there's 25 women and you're the one chosen to get the ring, I think that you're very likely to say yes, in comparison to men who are not given that same like pressure, societal pressure to like, you really want to get chosen by a woman. For men, it's a little bit of a different type of story that they're given. Like, you're supposed to obtain as many women as possible. So it's a very different type of pressure that men are given. And so I do think that the dynamic between the Bachelorette and her men is different than the dynamic between the Bachelor and his group of women. All that being said, you know, by the end, by the final four, you do just want to have a batch of guys that are really excited about you, not a bunch of guys that you are kind of like, oh, like, I hope that you want to be with me at the end of this, because it is disempowering, and it is kind of defeating the whole purpose of this process, right? And I think that Marcus, he's realizing it, but also he's kind of talking to everyone about it except for Jenn. Like, I feel like he's talking to his family about it, he's talking to the camera about it, but I don't know that he's talking to the other men about it. But has he directly told Jenn yet that he's not sure about getting engaged, that he's not sure if he can fall in love with her? I don't know that he's directly said that to her. So I am a little bit, I guess he's going to do it next week according to the previews, but don't you kind of think she should have known by this point that that's where he is?
That's one of the reasons why this episode in particular felt so all over the place, because the men were open about the fact that they were getting to know Jenn, but they had all communicated that they were really falling for her. So it's almost like the hometowns for them, instead of giving them more confidence, it shook them up a little bit. And they were like, I actually am not totally sure. And if we're zooming further out and we're thinking about Jenn, for so much of this season, she has really been prioritizing making sure there's a physical and a intellectual, playful connection in terms of, can we talk, can we banter, can we flirt, can we have fun, are we turned on around each other? And now that the conversation is shifting, because it is towards the end of the season, she's now asking the questions that I think the men are a little bit taken aback, because they have been developing a connection with her. Well, I wouldn't just say the men, Jenn and the men have been developing a connection with each other based on these other values. And now that it's like, okay, we have to actually get engaged, I think they're both like, whoa. Because from my perspective, if this wasn't a season where she was the lead and aiming to get married, I don't even know if she would be asking these questions. Especially the question of, are you ready for an engagement? I think she would be more so asking a question that feels more true to her, which is, are you ready for a healthy relationship? Are you ready to be in love? Are you ready to be a partner? Are you ready to build a life together where we can have fun and enjoy each other? That's the question that feels true. But she's now asking, do you want an engagement? Which is similar to what you're saying of like, are you choosing me? Are you choosing this level with me? And the men, authentically, I think if all of them had to be honest, including Devin, who seems super ready, they would probably be more of the camp of, I really, really like you. If not, I love you. And I am ready to be in a relationship with you. I'm just not ready to take that step because we just haven't built into a connection that would substantiate that level of commitment. So it kind of goes back to what you and I have been saying this entire season, which is Jenn ready for a marriage, or is she just learning about herself and growing and understanding a healthy relationship? Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not totally surprised that all four men at the end are in the exact same place that she's in, because energetically she's attracting what she is thinking about within herself. She's attracting people that are also thinking about, am I ready to be in a relationship? Am I ready to be in love? Am I ready for this thing? I've been in something totally unhealthy, whether that was Devin's family growing up, that was Marcus's family growing up, that was Jeremy's inability to be emotionally connective, Jonathon's complicated relationship with his ex. Like, all of these men just have something that is something that Jenn is actively struggling with and making sense of. So it's like, are they ready to get engaged when they're at that level of their journey? I don't know.
Dude, I love your point of like, Jenn is attracting kind of people who are at the same place that she's at, which is just kind of figuring out the story, kind of figuring out, how do I break the pattern? How do I do something different? Because that's what Devin was also talking about with his family, right? Devin was like, how do I do something different from what I saw from my family members and their relationships, right? It's like everyone's talking about like, how do I break a pattern from the past? Jenn is going through that journey, so I guess that's just the energy that she's pulling in, right? She's pulling in people who are kind of in a similar place as her. And even on the level of, she's someone who really prioritizes levity, playfulness, humor, like that kind of relationship. And so all of these men have been building that kind of relationship with her, right? This kind of like fun, casual, playful type of relationship, because that's the kind of thing that Jenn values, they're building that type of relationship. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, right, but the engagement, let's talk about that. And it's like,
Whoa.
in real life, you have all the time to go from that casual, fun, playful thing into, okay, what does a full life look like? We don't have that time in this process, but Jenn has kind of been using her real life dating playbook in this context, and it doesn't work. You kind of can't have casual dating on The Bachelor. You just can't. You add that into, Jenn is also trying to work through these patterns that she has had in past relationships. She's trying to work through that. She's pulling in people who are also working through past patterns, past traumas, and you get a bunch of people, none of whom seem like they're actually really ready for an engagement. And you get Jenn, who, you know, she knows that she's supposed to get engaged at the end of this, so she's the one left saying like, okay, wait, but will one of you get engaged to me? Like, will one of you just bite the bullet and jump in with me? And she's the one who's left looking like she's kind of begging for it or something, like begging for someone to go there with her. But in reality, none of them are ready. All of them should not be getting engaged, but Jenn is the one who's supposed to be getting engaged. She's the one who has set out at the start of the journey to saying, I'm going to get engaged at the end of this. And so she is the one who's having to kind of push all of these men to get to this next step, when in reality, none of them should really be taking the next step, you know?
Ooh, I love what you said. And this is something that as Jenn, I mean, okay, this is my hope for Jenn is, you know, when you're on such a transformative healing journey as this, where you are really, you've examined your dating history, you understand, okay, wasn't great, I want to step into something new. As you connect to that new story, you connect to yourself in such a profound way that external noise just doesn't penetrate you. Like, people can tell you, this is who you are, this is what you need to want, and she will say, that's not for me. And actually, I know myself, that's definitely not for me. So this show, that would be such a huge growth opportunity for Jenn to say, I see what the show says, I see what I wanted at the beginning of the season, but now that I know myself deeply, I don't want to get married, and I don't care what you say. I know that I'm not ready to get into I'm not ready to get engaged to somebody that I still need to learn from. I don't need to make this next step because I know what I truly need. And there is something about that power, that connection with your inner knowing, your intuition, your gut, when everything is aligned, nothing can rock that. Everybody can have an opinion, but you know what you need and you want. That would be, I think, Jenn in her highest form, you know, like she would just literally walk out of the season like, I can't let you propose to me because we're not ready to get married. What are we doing? This is silly. Let's like book a trip to Fiji and hang out. Like, why are we?
I would love that.
Wouldn't that be amazing? Like, why are we acting?
I would love that.
As if like we're playing pretend. We are not there. We have not advanced to that place yet. Do I want to get there? Totally. Am I just going to check this off my list because The Bachelor's telling me to do it? No. Like, I would love for her to just kind of connect to her voice and end the season that way. If she gets engaged to Devin or Marcus, which seems like her top two, it's like, you know, I say this again because everybody can get engaged whenever they want for whatever length they've ever had, of course. But now that we've really gotten to know Jenn, I think that there's so much more that she can experience as a person in dating. I don't know if an engagement, getting married is necessarily where I see her landing for her next journey.
I really hope that that is where this is all going. I would love for Jenn's story to end that way. I'm worried.
As soon as you said that, I was like, but is it? I don't know.
No, but let's see. I think to your point, there is an ending to this story where Jenn realizes what's going on and makes a choice for herself. And we saw her do it, right? We saw her do that with Sam M. She realized what was happening in that relationship and she made the choice that she needed to make for herself. So we know that she is already starting down that path. And now she's got these other guys, all of whom are being wonderful to her. So it's a little, it's not the same as the Sam M situation where it was like Sam M was spouting nonsense to her. These men are all, you know, kind of giving her what I think she wants. And so I do think that this is a second wave of what she was kind of started with Sam M, where she's needing to kind of wade through what's happening here, make sense of it all, and make the best choice for herself that allows her to step into her power and really know what she deserves. And so let's see. I think that is where she's headed. Is that with one of these 4 guys? I don't know. Or one of these 3 guys. I kind of hope it's not. Even if it is, it's okay because her journey continues even after this season. Maybe she needs to pick one of these guys and then get out of that relationship for her to really realize what it is that she needs and what it is that she wants. So if she gets engaged to Devin or whoever, fine. That doesn't mean anything. I do think that you got to go through what you have to go through in order to learn the lessons that you're meant to learn. And Jenn is on that journey. We know that she is growing and that she is healing and that she is taking those steps forward, and she's going to get to the point that she needs to get to. It's just a matter of when. So do I like any of these guys for her? No. Do I want her to end up with any of these guys? No. Do I think that she could end up with one of these guys? At the end of the season, yes. Long term, no.
I love that. That's a sound bite. That's basically our entire that's our feelings about the entire episode. It was so funny, Kelly, because as you and I were talking about the hometowns, there was a sense of confusion about how we were talking about it, because that's the same turmoil that is happening between Jenn and all of the men. There's not a sense of feeling settled, because it's as if this ephemeral connection all of them have is now being asked to pin down into, do you see a future with me? And it's like, whoa, this is such a different energy than what we've had before, which is we're frolicking through fields, we're making out in supermarkets, we're running in a club, and now we're asking these questions that we've kind of alluded towards, but we haven't really said. It makes sense because of the energy that's happening, you know? And I think that right now Jenn is looking for somebody to say, I choose you, and then she'll choose them back, and that'll give her a sense of feeling settled. But I think the bigger thing would be for her to just really get still with herself and think, am I even ready for an engagement? Do I even want an engagement if I really think about it with these guys? If not, okay, that's like something I can back out of and I can choose something else. But I do think that you're right. She will most likely make a choice where she will choose somebody. It will not be long term, but it will be what she needs. And that will kind of put a bow on her Bachelorette journey.
That's where I would guess that this is all going.
That sums up a very confusing but super illuminating hometowns episode. Next week, we see that there is a back-to-back Bachelorette extravaganza. It will be fantasy suites, the men tell all. There's going to be so much packed into this, so we can't wait to talk about it with you all. Make sure to please subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss a single episode, and we will see you next week.